Thank you, PK. This is a fitting end to the day-long conference. We've heard from so many agency leaders about, how the future of this whole ecosystem is looking like. Sam started his talk in the morning about how, whether clients are under-investing in branding. Vikram spoke about, what are the lessons for a new age media services company CEO, and in between we had a lot of discussions about, what's going on. PK, thank you for joining this talk. Prashant Kumar, as you know, has been the CEO of Group M South Asia for the last few years, and arguably Group M has a very large share of the entire media market, depending upon whom you talk to, perhaps ranging between 40 to 60%. So PK, what we'll do, I thought, is we'll kind of divide this talk in 3-4 buckets. One is about, what's happening with the agency ecosystem per se in this fast changing world. What is the relationship or how the relationship between the agencies and clients is kind of morphing given the fast advent of digital technology intervention, AI, and also now for the last few quarters, a relative slowdown in the Indian economy. Look at, what that does to your relationships with your media partners across the board. And then perhaps half a bucket about, your role in the industry bodies, especially AAASFI and some of the others in terms of what's happening. So I'll start with, something that Sam spoke about in the morning, and that kind of hits really at the heart of what's happening. If you were to define 3 challenges that media agencies are facing today, what would those be?
Okay, hello everyone. No, it's a very interesting phase right now. I'll just give a context before I get into this, because I think it's important to recognize a very interesting phase that this industry is facing. And let me put it that with a context. I think about 4 years back, we had the pandemic, right? And after that, I will divide that into 2 years, right? I think we had a very good 21, 22 as an industry. And I think 23 and this year has been a very interesting year for the industry across every part of the ecosystem, right? And that's only because I think we are all trying to find a growth over a growth that really fueled and accelerated in the first 2 years post-pandemic, right? Of course, it is progressive, and there's nothing wrong about it. But I think the shape of the growth and how we are really planning that has a lot of attention and focus that every part of the ecosystem needs to look at, right? And there, I'll try to answer your question on the challenges that, we probably the agency ecosystem are really looking at. I think a lot of, everybody said it's a new normal. It almost looks like it's never normal, right? A lot of rhapsody of uncertain events and managing expectation, leading to, some good new waves and excitement, as well as leading to disappointment is something which we all are leading to. And there the question is, the vulnerability versus resilience on managing the situation is what everybody has to go through. And when I look at that, I think vulnerability comes in every aspect of expectation, right? So when you look at the fluctuations and variations of expectation of advertising expenditure in the market, right? That brings in a lot of, uncertainty aspect. I think the ability to get fantastic talent and continue to develop it as well as strengthen it, in every single year and take it forward becomes an interesting challenge for every organization. I think a lot of it also to do with many of the newer waves which the industry is seeing, right? So these are 3 things which I will put it. And in each of these 3, I think the play is quite different, right? I think when uncertainty expectation management becomes difficult when uncertainty hits. I think a lot of it has to be more strategic and not just think for today. but have a span of, thinking into multiple years. It could be 3 years, 5 years, whatever you look at. And being ready for the new waves is what is important for every organization to focus on. I think we are dealing with all of this. It's not just us. I think our ecosystem, by and large, publishers, media owners, including all of our clients, and you look at it from, legacy brands, new age brands, and you look at both the extremes and how they are forming this entire, whether we debate on, branding versus performance, or we debate with, quarter growth with annual growth. In any way you want to debate traditional versus digital, I think all of it has got its own evolution, and all the three aspects comes into that. So it's an interesting phase. I don't think we are unique in a space like this. So that's the other interesting part. I don't think advertising industry is uniquely placed with all these challenges. Every industry is going through the same similar aspect. I think digital transformation is happening across every single industry. Consumer habits changes, consumer behavioral changes, consumption patterns, the newer consumption patterns, etc. is happening across every single category. So these plays are not only with this market, but there are lots of global economic, challenges which are coming in, and we can take a lot of learning from that. So it's an interesting phase. I think a lot of it will play a good contribution to how we come out of this with a lot of resilience, and how we all collectively play this together.
Yeah, it's a globally integrated economy. 2 decades back, this term called VUCA was coined, right, which spoke about, the cyclical nature of businesses across sectors. But I think it has now come to the fact that we are living in a permanent VUCA world, and that, cycles have become shortened. Every 3 to 6 months, there is a new disruption. I'll pick up on some of your points a little later. Let me come to a few specifics from, the recent past. You look at, what's happening in the Indian economy in the last 2 quarters. Sector after sector has reported, some kind of slowdown, as if, the entire disruption in the startup space was not enough, which happened a couple of years back. Global money supply dwindling post, the war between Ukraine and Russia. Last 2 quarters have been very muted. How bad is it when you sit inside a large agency and look at it from there, from your vantage point? How bad is this slowdown?
Yeah. I think it's not just last 2 quarters. If we look at a span from 21, last 6 quarters have been a bit of a changing quarters. And if we look at volume across categories, we look at volume, value, price, all these three have made significant patterns in which these 6 quarters have looked differently. Of course, last 2 quarters we have seen how, relatively they have been quite challenged if you compare to the previous 2 quarters or even the previous 2, right? I think one interesting aspect is, especially last 2 quarters when it's been quite challenging, while there were relatively lower growth, when you look at from a volume perspective, and then leading into the value perspective. I think the fueling of the growth has been quite relatively better in the rural side, right, with comparison to the urban side. And when you look at that, obviously in such challenging state of affairs, I think people get more cautious on how they look at their plans and how they look at spending. In addition to that, I think fighting the wallet share has been the biggest challenge for every single media, right? Of course, it is true that there are some interesting learning from each media and formats. For example, if you look at the organized sector versus the long tail or the medium and small companies and the market lying there, I think there are some relatively, advantages with some of the media, where others are still working on it. Right? So that brings in a bit of a challenge plus an opportunity. And I hope that some of the media is able to appreciate that and work on it and come with solutions on that. But all of it lies back to what amount of solves and intelligent solves which can bring in progress to every category, because anybody, you look at a household, when there is a challenge on, the progress, I think they'll be cautious on spending, right? Today only I met somebody, who is from the ecosystem, and the person was telling me the same thing, right? So, and in this, where does the progress come? I think it has got a base, because we have also seen how every 12 months in this last 2 years have been different to the next 12 months, right? With the kind of events that is happening, with the kind of changes in the festivities, and it's not the same. So you look at the consumption pattern differently, different quarters playing it differently. So all of this leads to the challenge, and yes, it's been tough for a lot of the players in the ecosystem. I think we take the responsibility to work, collectively with them to find the best solve, so that the progress is made in different forms, right? It's not enough if you look at only from the depth of the solve. I think a radical width of and diversification is important to focus on. And that's where I think you will expand the progress and the growth when it comes to business in any manner.
Business after business obviously is, facing challenges in terms of, top line growth, bottom line growth. There's a story I read today about, 1,500 listed companies on the stock market who reported record low, profits in this recently finished second quarter of the year. While we were chatting outside, Vikram mentioned a very apt point, which is that the purpose of marketing is to beat slowdown, right? And as media agencies, which are the custodians for investing money on behalf of the client, have we somewhere failed in convincing the client to kind of invest more while there is a slowdown? Some sectors did it, mind you. If you look at some of the patterns in the FMCG space last year, many companies tried to invest more to kind of get their volume and value growth up. But that's not happened across sectors. So is there a narrative that we've not created, which the clients have kind of not bought into fully?
I think this goes hand in hand with, it's not just the agency's perspective to look at, I think our responsibility to bring in, that potential different types of solutions to clients. I think we play that differently. I don't agree that there is not enough convincing, because there's an expectation of the fact that, advertising, spending more should give that growth. I think there is obviously, more advertising you look at and doing it in a relevant manner, I think it can show progress. But today you have, the results, coming in quite quickly. And that puts a little bit of challenge for everybody to look at whether option A works or formula A works or option 2 works. And I think that's where we have to collectively be with the client. And it's not just putting a narrative. I think about learning, even if you fail, learning from failures, learning into new experimentation comes hand in hand on this. It's not an easy thing to say, right? Because as you see, if you look at 5 years back or 7 years back, as short as that, the solutions have only doubled. For an advertiser, it's not anymore looking at 4 or 5 medias and advertise on that. But the nuances in each of the solves have only got expanded. I mean, we never had an influencer marketing. We never had a connected TV. We never had commerce playing in this form. We never had a quick commerce aspect on this form. Learning in data, using data, understanding insights, consumer consumption pattern, likes, dislikes, then personalizing it and deploying it. All this have expanded very interestingly, right? And I think that gives an opportunity for us to put that accountability on finding what formulas are really picking up or what are the learnings on it, and getting that comprehensive narration for each brand, each category, and so on. I also feel that these days, because of a lot more changes happening in the geopolitical, in the multi-global markets, in the seasonality. It's not enough that you find an annual formula, right? I think it has, I don't know whether to call it monthly or quarterly, but it has got certain seasonality to it, and take the learnings and ability to forecast that, using some intelligent solves, and also having some exciting experiments which can probably give better results for each of the categories, something which, if we can come together and put the solution, I think clients will get more and more.
Do you think agencies are capable of doing that? I wanted to sort of bring up another point. You talk about, so much gets spoken about performance marketing. Philip Kotler famously coined the 4 Ps many, many years back. He's 93, by the way. He wrote his latest book this year called Transformative Marketing. And those 4 Ps have morphed now into, 8, 10 Ps and what have you. One of them is, of course, performance. And there is such a huge debate these days about performance, branding, whether there's been over-indexing on, performance at the expense of building a brand. And of course, there are arguments for and against both. In the morning while Sam was presenting, he put up a slide about all of these startup D2C brands which have vanished from the business ecosystem, primarily because they over-indexed on performance and that's all they did. No brand was created. And there are also examples of many legacy brands who in the past few years have again over-indexed on performance at the, expense of, continuing to build brands. So if you look at, media investment agencies, how do you look at this conundrum and, what is the advice to the client? Because performance might certainly deliver, short-term results, and that's what many clients are looking for today.
I think the answer is in the question itself. I don't think only one can help the other. Right? I mean, one can help the other, but I don't think without focusing on branding and getting the brand power more and more strengthened, even performance can have a larger impact for the results. I think we have been discussing this topic for the last at least 2 to 3 years now. And everybody has come, whether it's a client or whether it is an expert or advertising agency expert or from a publisher side. People have all agreed to the fact that it has to play together, right? But at the same time, the power of a brand, an ability to pull a consumer, an ability to get the consumption more or consumer journey or built onto that is a very important factor. I don't think we can discount it at all. I think the enhancement of performance has actually happened when more and more digital first, brands came in, more and more expectation happened and how it played because we had avenues playing on that. So while it has its own significance and getting results in a much shorter form, I don't think we can discount the branding aspect at all. In fact, in tough times, branding works even better, right? That doesn't mean you have to discount the performance aspect. I think there is a role of performance even in a branding aspect. And therefore, what metrics work for which brand, what attributes can be looked at from each of that. I think we got to measure it, we have to understand that and play with it together.
Do you think clients are fully convinced about that argument? I ask this because, as you've seen, advertising spends on TV are, largely flat in the last few years, if not, lower. And TV, as we all know, largely works, to help brand building. So are clients convinced about this argument? And if they're not, then what is the way to convince them?
I feel that this plays to different categories in different forms, right? There are categories that continue to spend on TV even now, and they have grown their spends on TV. I think whenever brands get launched, it's not that they are discounting their ability to, work on the branding aspect of this. I think we have to be more responsible in showing that solve in a certain form, right? And I sense that more and more because our ability to co-create that solve is where the magic completely lies. Clients are able to understand this. I think I told you that the last 6 quarters have been more challenging, and therefore some tactics may come into play, right, in terms of goals and achievements of results. But I don't agree that clients do not value branding, because it's again, many top categories do play value to that and they're working on it. Yes, the debate can it be more? But that again is left on to the business quotients and how the business ratios are. Can we do more? Definitely we can do more. And I think that is again from each media, each solution, how we can put it, right? I don't think the approach should be that, no, we should only focus performance. I think it's a composite aspect to which timing, which season, at which phase of the brand needs to come in. And continuous branding work will only enhance the power of the brand.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of marketers believe that, money spent on brand building is also performance money, or it should be. It should deliver, measurable results in the form of, acquiring new customers, or, sort of getting the existing ones to buy more. Let me come to, another very hotly discussed topic in our business, which is, one of the pain points, which is measurement. And it has been for the last many years. And now that, ad spends on digital have really ballooned to the extent they have. Last week, both Meta and Google announced their FY24 annual results. For those of you who did not get a chance to look at them, I think their combined top line is around 63,000 crores, right? Which is obviously more than 50% of the entire ad spend in the industry, almost more than two times of the spends on digital, almost equal or more than the next 8-10 players. I mean, they are really not the 800-pound gorilla, but perhaps the 8,000-pound gorillas. And all of this is happening without any sort of third-party measurement. Now, with sort of the economy slowing down, more and more spends coming under the sort of, lens. How do you see this whole measurement journey panning out? Of course, it's unlikely there'll be third-party measurement for, these digital platforms. But what kind of metrics do you see evolving as we move forward and clients look at, spends more closely, especially on digital?
Yeah, this is a subject which again has been discussed to depth and width in many ways. I think evolved clients and evolved processes has helped clients to look at their own data, right, which we call it first-party data from that context, and their own aspects of each campaign and measuring them and taking the learning from that. That's what most of the clients are doing, and therefore that's a journey which is happening. When it comes to third-party aspect, as you said, it's got its own challenges. At the same time, I think as an industry, even today there are efforts being put on to see how it can be, brought to life and been made use for many of the clients. Well, there is more action required there, and any more relevant actions only will help the ecosystem to grow in a progressive manner on that. Discussing on the digital, skew or spends on the overall ADEX, I think we should also understand that the ability to micro-target has been a great advantage for digital, right? And of course, it's there for print also. In fact, for print, it has helped the recovery shape of growth post-pandemic in a big form from the retail and the long-tail growth. I think it's important to look at these learning and see how a technology enhancement can be done to, most of the media. And that can really help to get more progress in some of the other media. So measurement, yes, while there is first-party data and clients, its own way of looking at and getting the insights and doing that, I think more and more clients will start doing that in the absence of a third-party thing. But there is more action required on that. I think the industry is coming together to work on that. I'm sure in the next coming months, we'll have more and more news on this, right?
One of the other things that, rise of technology, digital has done is that it has changed the entire media buying investment ecosystem. Gone are the days when media planners sat down and did plans, did data runs, on softwares. Now, majority of the ad buying happens through programmatic, and that's obviously also, had a very big impact on the kind of talent you're hiring, what is the kind of knowledge you need to have, and so on and so forth. So I'll ask you two questions. One is, of course, if you look at the entire legacy media ecosystem, do you foresee media pricing coming under pressure as you move forward, especially as you said, last 6 quarters having been sort of slow, while there is consolidation happening at the larger company level, but at the same time there's a lot of inventory in the market because of the slowdown. So you see media pricing coming under pressure as we move forward?
It's a very interesting question. I think this is a easy question, but it can't be said with a yes or no, and I'll explain that. See, we have, let's take 4 large media that we have. We have digital, we have print, we have TV, we have, let's say, radio or out of home. All of them, TV is a finite media. You can't have a 25th hour in a day. And therefore, there are regulations, there is a policy, there are ways in which advertising space can be done on that. Now, the business model is built on basis of that. When you look at digital, it is not necessarily a finite media. Now, the business model will be built on that. Same goes for other 2 media also. Now, when you are fighting a share of wallet, and we're looking at, as you rightly mentioned, last 2 quarters have been difficult, and you're estimating how the next 2 quarters has been. I think strategies will have a mix of both tactical and how the merit of holding on to large properties, etc., versus regular meat which gets bought and sold. It's a mix of the strategy. I think the play of finite, non-finite, as well as the play of these properties, content specifically, has a role on how the pricing will get, right? Obviously, I can say it from the demand-supply perspective, ultimately. I think this is a time where, ultimately, if brands' business do not progress, I think it's a big challenge for everybody in the industry. The source of business is coming from how each business holds on to their business and how they progress. Anyone or collectively trying to help that will only help to get more of that resources come into the ecosystem. Only then you can do a wallet share fight, or then you can look at a higher demand and therefore look at how yields can go up and stuff like that. Now, there is therefore the value which needs to be brought in, right? If everybody starts focusing on that value, I think progress can come, right? Outcomes can be better. And price is a derivative from that context. Now, if you want to really say there are only, one front page and back page, only 2 inventories, and the supply is limited, and if demand is high, obviously price will go up. But that's not the case with every aspect. Because today, the solutions are umpteen, and it is only increasing, right? And the same, in digital, there is a fight between performance money versus commerce money versus quick commerce money. So when those solutions are coming in, I think absolutely the focus should be on how can we add more value to the growth of brands, and therefore, helping the ecosystem for a steady growth.
Absolutely. Slowdown is the best time actually for innovative solutions to come up. Let me ask you, Prashant, you run a very large company. We've had so many startup digital companies that have come up in the last, decade or so, who are more nimble-footed, who turn around ideas at a faster pace, who are more invested in content, creativity, and so on and so forth. How does a large company compete with these upstarts? And today you also see many clients gravitating towards experimenting more and more with smaller companies. So what do you do? You defined the challenges at the start. If I were to ask you the 3 things now that you need to do, especially to sort of stay ahead of the curve, of course continue to be a solution provider to the client, but also deal with an ecosystem where you have a mushrooming of so many startup agencies.
I think first point is be objective and be objective to your source of growth story, right? And which means that you're completely focusing on what is the strategy you have put on and how are you really looking at growing that, irrespective of whichever industry, from that context. I think the second point is that obviously there are great opportunities coming in. It doesn't matter small or big. I think trends will start giving the signal of how those opportunities can give enhanced growth, either in a wider form or a deeper form, right? And the third one is absolutely, which is the most important, is focus on your customer. I think customer and customer success and ability to give the stories or ability to get that executed in the best form, taking learning from success as well as failures, helps you to have this journey in a very black and white and not get distracted to any aspect. Everything else is an avenue to fit into that journey. So these are three things which I feel, not only in a challenging time, but even in a buoyant industry, it will help to get the journey more and more progressive.
Last question, I see the timer is up. You also donned the hat of being the AAA's FI president, and you brought in some initiatives in the last couple of years. There are a lot of, this year has been full of pitches. One of the things I noticed, I was talking with a few friends, is that, a lot of pitches happen and the process gets very prolonged. Running into sometimes 6 months, sometimes even more. And I remember Tasmai, our editor, is sitting somewhere in the audience. She did a story 3 weeks back, Tasmai. There are 6 or 7 large accounts on pitch and 3 more, already there. So you can say 10 accounts. Does AAAFI have a role in this, to kind of streamline the timeline? I recall this small incident. An agency CEO was supposed to be here at our IDMA Awards in June. And he called last minute saying a client is insisting that I come Monday morning and present our case. This is Friday night, this is June, we are sitting in November, and the result of the pitch is not out yet, right? So is there something AAAFI can do?
You see, I think AAAFI is a collection of, agency organizations. And obviously they have a part to shape the industry practices. So answer is yes, we have a role to play in this. I think we have been fortunate that all the members have been discussing it together and trying to help the ecosystem to shape it in the right form. I think it's also true that the pitching process has become slightly more complex. And rightly, because many more parameters have got added to the entire evolution of the industry. But definitely, we should understand one thing, that all the components of the ecosystem is actually trying to help each other and improve the process for each other. So how it gets played now, whether it is a consultant in a pitch, whether it is, educating about few, let me tell you, the regulations and the clauses are all very evolved. If you look at 5 years back, they got evolved now for everyone, right? The taxation policies have got evolved. Now, it's equally important to have those conversations, discuss that, which is what we are doing. And I must tell you that we are seeing progress in these conversations. It's not that we have a blind or a silent client ecosystem there or a silent publisher ecosystem there. But it may get a little bit more time to get more conclusive direction. But I think discussions are on, few steps have got progressed, few steps of the work is on, few direction changes are being looked at. And this thing will happen because there is an abundance of options and changes which is happening. As I said, it is never normal state. And we are committed to this journey, right? And I think it's progress for everybody, and 3 years of I stands for that. We have been on it. We have seen some progress. We have seen some challenges. For example, as you talked about the measurement, we want to this year focus more on that and try and see how we can get that started not just started, but get it practice in a better practice for everybody in the ecosystem. So there are choices of couple of 2 or 3 themes which we focus on each year, And in that, all the three or all the four or how many ever components of ecosystem, they all collectively should play in it. And 3 years away committed to get the right practice into the market.
Last year, FI also took the initiative of instituting a mechanism to ensure that agency remuneration was standardized. There was no sort of discouragement of undercutting. So how is that initiative going?
See, we started that journey, and we started the journey, obviously, discussing with each other. We also had discussions with the partners across the ecosystem, including clients, publishers, etc. and all. We have seen a very good progress on that. But nothing is perfect in many of these journeys. And that's also because every time you feel you've done something progress, there is a new element or a new
It's a dynamic environment. Yeah. Like I said, VUCA world.
Yes. So we are getting a lot more learning. We are observing them. We are collectively discussing that. And we're trying to strengthen that journey, and which is happening also. So good initiative. Obviously, all of us are encouraged with this. A lot of it is also, we see it as a bait and pass to the next generation, when the industry will get even more stronger. So that much more responsibility for the people today working on that. We see that actually getting rallied by all the ecosystem components also. And we have all the gratitude towards all the people in that ecosystem across, right? And I'm sure this will only get more and more strong.
Fantastic. You must give it to Prashant Kumar, despite donning the hat of India's largest media services business, also being involved in all of these industry initiatives and giving honest, significant time to these initiatives is really doing yeoman service. Thank you, Prashant, for this candid and insightful discussion. Thank you all for spending your day with us. I hope you're going back with more learnings like I am from the time we started the day. Thank you, and back to you, Bhavna.